Picture this. Your 10-year-old car develops a knock over bumps, a vibration in the steering wheel, and a front tire that is wearing on one edge. The shop puts it on a lift and hands you a $2,400 suspension estimate. The car's trade-in value barely reaches $2,000. Then you search online. The dealer price parts cost more than $1,000. A complete front-end kit costs less than $300. It has control arms, ball joints, tie rods, links, bushings, and enough hardware to make the expensive quote look like a scam. One of those shopping carts can save an older car. The other can make you pay for the same labor twice. These are 7 value suspension brands and exact product lines worth knowing in 2026, plus 5 cheap part traps that can turn a bargain rebuild into the most expensive repair on the car. And the first smart buy is not the brand most mechanics call premium. Number 7 is Monroe, but only when the box says Quick-Strut or OESpectrum. This is the first rule of budget suspension shopping. Never buy a logo, buy a product line. Monroe's Quick-Strut exists for a very specific owner. The car is old enough to need struts, the top mounts are tired, the boots are cracked, and paying a shop to disassemble rusty spring hardware makes little financial sense. The complete assembly arrives with an application-specific spring, strut, mount, and the small components that usually create the second repair. That convenience is where the savings come from. Not from making the shock absorber disappear from the bill, but from removing spring compressor labor and replacing the worn stack as one matched assembly. In North America, qualifying Quick-Strut and OESpectrum products carry Monroe's limited lifetime warranty. In Europe, the terms differ, but Monroe still treats OESpectrum as a higher replacement line and requires axle pair installation for its extended coverage. The catch is important. Do not translate complete strut into every complete strut is equal. A no-name assembly can use one generic spring rate across several engines and trim levels. That can leave a car sitting too high, too low, or riding like the trunk is permanently full of concrete. Monroe makes the list because it publishes applications, identifies the line, and supports the assembly after the sale. Buy it for an ordinary daily driver when labor simplicity matters more than perfect factory refinement. Verdict: best value complete assembly. The first trap is the mystery complete strut. Its listing promises compatibility with 6 model years, 3 engines, 2 body styles, and sometimes an all-wheel drive version that use different factory springs. The photograph looks perfect because every black strut looks convincing before it carries a car. Look for a real manufacturer catalog, a unique part number for each side, a clear warranty, and an application that matches engine, drivetrain, and suspension package. If the seller cannot explain those 4 things, the low price is not efficiency, it is missing information. A cheap stabilizer link is annoying when it fails. A mismatched spring changes ride height, alignment, braking attitude, and the way the car reacts in an emergency. That is not the place for an anonymous box. Number 6 is Delphi steering and suspension. Delphi is useful because it often occupies the uncomfortable space between dealer pricing and the cheapest warehouse listing. It is not always the lowest number on the screen, and that is exactly why many shoppers scroll past it. For control arms, ball joints, and tie rod components, the details that matter are not paint color or how heavy the box feels. They are the stud taper, the machined surfaces, the rubber boot, the position of the bushings, and whether the welded arm was consistently produced. Delphi says its ball joints are built to OE standards. Its control arm material describes robot welding and crack detection rather than a worker simply looking at a finished arm and deciding it seems fine. That does not make every Delphi arm identical to the dealer part, and it does not guarantee every application will be the best choice. It makes Delphi a rational middle cart option when an older mainstream car needs a complete arm, and the OE price no longer fits the value of the vehicle. Use Delphi where the catalog shows a direct application and the part includes the correct hardware. Inspect the dust boot before installation. Compare bushing orientation with the arm coming off the car. If the new arm arrives with torn rubber, damaged threads, or a bushing pressed at an obviously different angle, Do not install the mistake just because returning it is inconvenient. Verdict: sensible mid-price control arms and steering parts. Number 5 is Mevotech, with a warning printed directly into the verdict. The useful lines are Supreme and TTX. Original grade is a different product tier. Treating all three as interchangeable is how a brand recommendation turns into bad advice. And do not rely on a colored boot to identify the line. Colors and visible features can change by component and application. Check the brand printed on the box and verify the complete part number in MEV-O-Tech's own catalog before leaving the pickup counter. Many TTX chassis numbers begin with TXMS, while TTX control arms often begin with CTXMS. Supreme commonly uses MS or CMS, and original grade often uses GS or GK. Those prefixes are a useful warning light, not a substitute for confirming the exact listing. Mevotech is strongest as a North American value option, especially for trucks, SUVs, and applications where the company offers an upgraded design. TTX is the heavy-duty line. Supreme sits below it as the broad premium replacement range. Both chassis and control arm lines have published limited lifetime warranty coverage, subject to the actual terms. The appeal is easy to understand. Some applications use larger bearing surfaces, reinforced housings, greasable joints, or redesigned components intended to address a known weak point. That can be smarter than buying the cheapest copy of the original weakness. But this is not permission to click the first blue box. Confirm the suffix and line in the manufacturer catalog. Check whether the useful upgraded version even exists for your vehicle. On a car that has no TTX application, a random Mevotech listing does not become TTX quality through optimism. Buy Supreme for a normal replacement when the price is meaningfully below OE. Buy TTX when the vehicle is heavy, works hard, or has a documented repeat failure point that the upgraded part directly addresses. Verdict: strongest value when the exact upgraded line exists. If this line-by-line approach is more useful than another list calling every brand either perfect or garbage, subscribe to AutoVerdict. The goal here is to save the repair, not just win the click. The second trap is the 12-piece miracle kit. You know the listing. 2 control arms, 2 ball joints, inner and outer tie rods, sway bar links, boots, hardware, and free shipping for less than 1 quality control arm. The danger is not that every component must fail immediately. The danger is that the kit hides the cost of the weakest component. 1 loose ball joint or split boot can force another alignment, another diagnostic visit, and another round of labor. The 10 pieces that survive do not refund the one that failed. A smarter budget rebuild mixes lines. Spend more on loaded control arms, ball joints, tie rods, and dampers. Save on simple brackets, serviceable links, boots, and hardware from identified suppliers. Suspension does not reward matching box colors. It rewards matching risk to quality. Number 4 is MEYLE HD. The 2 letters matter. MEYLE Original and MEYLE HD are not the same promise. The HD line is built around application-specific redesigns. A larger joint, a different material, added corrosion protection, or a revised bushing intended to remove a known weakness. MEYLE backs HD products with a 4-year guarantee. This makes MEYLE HD especially interesting for the small suspension parts that owners become tired of replacing. Stabilizer links, mounts, bushings, and control arms on vehicles with a known wear pattern. Imagine a factory link that uses a plastic body because it is light, quiet, and cheap to install at the assembly plant. On a car that spends 10 winters in salt, the original engineering compromise may no longer be the compromise you want. MEYLE shows HD applications that move to forged aluminum, enlarge the ball head, or improve corrosion protection. That does not mean metal always beats plastic or HD always beats OE. A hydraulic bushing may exist because the car needs vibration isolation, not because the manufacturer forgot how rubber works. Buy the redesigned part only when its trade-off matches the car and the way it is used. For an older European car, MY-LA HD can be the sweet spot between an anonymous copy and a dealer box, The exact HD part is the product. The brand name alone is not. Verdict, best targeted upgrade for a known weak point. The third trap looks expensive enough to be safe. MEYLE, Sachs, and TRW are respected precisely because of their OE history. That reputation also makes them targets for counterfeiters. ZF identifies MEYLE chassis parts among its commonly faked products and provides a QR authenticity check for its aftermarket packaging. This is where the famous same part in a cheaper box story becomes dangerous. Sometimes an aftermarket component genuinely shares a supplier or casting with the original part. Sometimes a logo is removed for commercial reasons, but you cannot apply that story to every listing, every factory, and every model year. Buy from an established distributor, scan the code, match the part number in the manufacturer catalog, inspect printing, seals, machining, and packaging. A premium name from an untraceable seller is not a bargain premium part. It is an unverified safety component. Number 3 is TRW Chassis. TRW sits under the ZF umbrella with Lemferder and Sachs, but it can appear at a more approachable price depending on the application and market. ZF describes the expanding TRW chassis range as engineered to original equipment specifications. This is the brand to check before paying dealer money for a European car tie rod end, ball joint, control arm, or related steering component. Not because every TRW listing is secretly the dealer part, but because the line starts with real chassis engineering, catalog support, and traceable distribution. TRW also exposes one of the biggest mistakes in online shopping. Two arms can look identical in a thumbnail while using different rubber compounds, ball pin finishes, boot materials, and bushing geometry. Those differences are almost invisible on delivery day. They become obvious after a winter of water, salt, heat, and steering load. Use TRW as the value reference. Compare its price with OE, Lemferder, and DEL5 for the exact part number. If the dealer part is only slightly more, buy OE. If TRW is meaningfully cheaper and cataloged for the application, the cheaper box can be the adult decision rather than the risky one. Verdict, OE-rooted chassis value, especially for European applications. The fourth trap is not inside the box. It happens during installation. Many rubber suspension bushings are bonded to an inner sleeve. If the pivot bolt is fully tightened while the suspension hangs at full droop, the rubber can be twisted before the car moves 1 meter. Set the vehicle back at normal ride position and that new bushing may already be carrying permanent stress. ZF's workshop guidance specifically warns that clamping bolts for rubber metal components should receive final torque in the normal assembled position where required. Orientation marks matter too. Voids and hydraulic chambers are placed to control movement in specific directions. This is how a quality arm earns a terrible online review after 6 months. The part may be wrong. The installation may be wrong. From the driver's seat, both sound like the same knock. Follow the factory procedure, use the correct torque, replace specified single-use hardware, and align the car afterward. Saving on parts is reasonable. Guessing on suspension geometry is not. Number 2 is KYB Excel-G. KYB does not sell Excel-G as a racing upgrade. That is why it belongs near the top of a value list. The line is designed to restore the handling, control, and ride the vehicle was supposed to have when it was new. KYB says Excel-G units are produced on the same assembly lines as its OE shocks and struts using OE quality components. The design is gas-charged twin-tube, and the calibration is application-specific rather than a universal promise of sport handling. For a normal sedan, crossover, or daily-driven SUV, restoring factory behavior is usually the smartest suspension upgrade. The car does not need to become lower, stiffer, or more dramatic. It needs to stop floating after a bump, keep the tire connected to the road, and remain predictable in rain. The purchase rule is simple. Replace shocks or struts in axle pairs. KYB states that directly, and it also calls for alignment after strut replacement. A single new front strut beside a tired old unit is not half a smart repair. It is an unbalanced axle. Add new mounts and protection components where required. A fresh damper with an old seized bearing or torn boot is a new part waiting for an old part to damage it. Verdict: best factory feel value for a normal daily driver. The fifth trap usually begins with the sentence, "The other side is not leaking yet." Shocks lose control gradually. The dry unit on the other side can still be worn. Install one new damper and the axle now reacts differently left to right. Reuse a collapsed mount, rough bearing, split bump stop, or torn dust boot, and the labor savings disappear the first time the new strut knocks or its polished rod meets road grit. Monroe and KYB both build their installation guidance around paired replacement. Monroe also warns that old protection and mounting components can affect steering, create noise, and shorten component life. The cheapest complete job is often larger than the cheapest invoice. Buy the pair, inspect or replace the mounts, bearings, boots, and bump stops. Then pay for one alignment, not two. Number 1 is Bilstein B4. This is not the yellow performance shock most people picture when they hear Bilstein. The B4 is the quiet product in the catalog, an OE replacement damper designed for standard suspension and factory-style behavior. Bilstein says the B4 corresponds to original equipment function and quality standards. Depending on the vehicle, it can include technology carried over from OE applications. In plain English, this is the Bilstein for the owner who wants the car to feel correct, not modified. That makes B4 one of the strongest answers to dealer shock pricing on European cars and many mainstream applications. It may cost more than the cheapest aftermarket unit, but the calculation changes when labor, alignment, and the intention to keep the car are included. Think of the price in years, not checkout screens. A $70 anonymous damper that creates noise, poor control, or a second installation is more expensive than a traceable replacement that costs $120. The exact numbers change by vehicle. The logic does not. Cross-shop B4 against Saks, KYB Excel-G, and the genuine part. If the premium gap becomes small, take the product with the best application support and local warranty. If B4 lands well below the dealer box, it is often the cleanest way to buy back the original ride without paying for the logo on the parts counter. Verdict: best premium level replacement without dealer pricing. Here is the final shopping list. Monroe Quick-Strut is the value choice when an older daily driver needs the full strut stack and labor simplicity matters. Delphi is the rational middle ground for catalog control arms, ball joints, and steering components. Mevotech Supreme and TTX makes sense when the exact upgraded line exists, especially for North American trucks and hard-use applications. MEYLE is the targeted fix for a known weak link. TRW is the OE-rooted chassis alternative worth checking before paying dealer prices. KYB Excel-G is the factory feel value winner for ordinary daily drivers. Bilstein B4 is the strongest premium replacement when you want original behavior without the dealer box. And remember the 5 traps: mystery complete struts, giant no-name kits, unverified premium boxes, bushings tightened in the wrong position, and a one-sided repair that reuses every worn component around the new part. The secret is not finding one cheap brand that makes everything. That brand does not exist. The smart suspension rebuild is a mixed cart built around the risk of each component, the exact product line, and the cost of doing the labor again. For the next AutoVerdict teardown, we are applying the same rule to wheel bearings and hubs, where 2 boxes can look identical while one survives water, salt, and highway heat, and the other begins humming before the next oil change. Subscribe and turn on notifications if you want that comparison. And in the comments, name the suspension part that failed far earlier than it should have, plus the brand and mileage. Then tell us which of these 7 brands you consider the most overrated. Those ownership stories will determine which parts go into the next investigation. Do not shop by the loudest logo. Shop by the exact line, the exact application, and the repair you only want to pay for once.